Jasper is here again. He's consultant sales engineer at Kofax. And again, he's going to talk about efficiency improvement in highly unstructured documents. And with that, Jasper, I think I just bring your slides to the big screen, and the stage is then yours. And let me try to also bring your face next to it.
Oh, wow.
You are.
You can
At least
actually
I can
see me
you.
now. Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, as you can see, I'm dressed for the weather currently. It's quite cold here in the Netherlands. But again, Ben, thanks so much on the one hand for inviting me again to talk about things that I truly love, but also for organizing and directing these great sessions. As Ben already said, I want to talk about highly unstructured documents and how we've been able to achieve great results in one particular situation. But the principles that we're going to be talking about will apply to a lot of use cases. So that being said, let's dive right in. Well, Ben already introduced me, Jesper Scherpenhuizen. Don't try to pronounce my last name. My late father always challenged people abroad to pronounce our last name for like $5 or €5 or whatever the currency was at that time. And he's never had to pay up. So it's all fine. But if you do want to connect, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, on Twitter, but also on YouTube, or just drop me a line. I'll make sure to add my Kofax email address to this slide deck later on as well. So I want to start off with story time. So what I want to talk about is one particular use case, one particular challenge that's been posed to me and my colleagues a while back. So the story is it's in banking essentially. And as most of you know, know your customer due diligence, anti-money laundering, detecting financial crime is on the one hand at the top of every bank's agenda, not just because, what it means to them directly, but it's also something that is highly regulated. And central banks and other, supervisory organizations are imposing, significant fines to these organizations as well. I just put 3 examples here on the screen. And as you can see, those are, those are amounts that, mere mortals can't even imagine. €500 million, $130 million. What's it there? It's 107 million pounds sterling. These are the things that banks struggle with. How do they make sure that on the one hand they apply to all the rules and regulations that these supervisors actually apply to them, but also how do they prevent indeed things like financing of terrorism? How do they make sure that the people that they onboard as customers are indeed the people that they want to have as customers? How do they prevent fraud? All of those sort of things are getting more and more attention within the financial industry. And I'm talking about a bank today, but the same principle applies to insurance, financial services in general. All of those organizations will have to do their due diligence. And what you'll now see happen across the board, not just in Europe, but actually on a global scale, is that the costs that are associated with these checks, KYC, CDD, AML, DFC, or any other 3-letter acronym, it's costing them dearly. And on the one hand, that is what it is. But in today's current situation, it is also extremely hard to find the right people to do that job, because they'll probably need to be analysts or maybe even trained in law, went to law school, those sort of things. So it is getting a lot of attention from the banks there as well. So the actual use case that I want to talk about today was for one of the European banks that we already worked with for years on end. They already used a lot of our RPA technology. They used some capture technology of ours as well, and specifically in RPA, they have made great improvements, and they saved the bank millions of manual labor hours, um, but also in turn millions of euros or tens of millions of euros. And one of the best examples is, of course, specifically within those functions that do due diligence, know your customer investigations, anti-money laundering, detecting financial crime, those sort of things. But next to that, they have almost automated everything that you can think of. But they weren't there yet. They already had some ideas, and of course, we as Kofax, we've tried to inspire them to get even further along in their journey towards hyperautomation and making sure that they embrace even more of the emerging technologies that we use. So they posed as a challenge. Um, as part of their CDD process, their customer due diligence process, they had a small army of people who went to law school, who were essentially lawyers, reviewing a lot of these notarized documents as part of the CDD process and finding the right data points from there. And these documents are like articles of incorporation, deeds, or statutes, you might even say, are typically, well, publicly available documents. You can typically go to a chamber of commerce, download them, and what one of these analysts then did is go through these documents, which typically were somewhere between at least 10, but maybe all the way up to 500, even 1,000 pages. And that was costing them dearly. On the one hand, because that really slowed down their onboarding process. So the bank came to us and said, well, we've got a challenge for you. But we expect that this can be done automatically, that we just throw this document into a magic blue box, and we'll then just get the data out of it. And it needs to be absolutely touchless, 99% straight through. Essentially, what they were asking for was magic. And that of course posed a significant challenge for us because, well, even though we do great things with KTA, with Kofax RPA, with all of the capabilities within the intelligent automation platform, but we are not magicians yet. And especially when we looked at the actual documents that they provided us, this is just one example. This is indeed an article of incorporation. It is highly unstructured, and one of the main reasons for that is these are documents that are generated or created or maybe even physically typed by notaries, and notaries are notorious, probably that's where the word comes from, for making each and everything very bespoke, very customized to that situation. So there wasn't just an easy way to say, well, the data points that this bank was looking for in these documents could be easily located. And they needed a lot of data points from that. And we immediately said, well, okay, well, given this situation, given this level of complexity, this level of variety within this, we can't do magic. We can't provide you with a magic blue box that will where you just throw these documents in and you'll get the data points out of it. But what we then did was something else entirely. We spoke to Jennifer. Jennifer was one of those people at this bank who worked, who still works, by the way, as a CDD analyst. And she was indeed one of those 120 people who did nothing else throughout the whole day than just working through, plowing through these documents, trying to find the right data points. And we actually, well, we interviewed her, myself, two other colleagues, Berry van Leeuwen, David Wright, and we really asked her, well, show us, tell us, what's your job? What are the challenges? And what she told us is that typically one one of those 120 would typically take at least 20 minutes to get the right data out of this document. And then you should think about things like, okay, well, what's the purpose of the company applying for this loan or applying for this bank account? Okay, how are the shares divided? Where is it incorporated? A lot of these data points that would be hidden away in those hundreds of pages there as well. And the more we talked to her, and she, of course, said, well, typically it's 20 minutes, but I'm one of the best. I can do it in 15 minutes. But still, it's a long time to work on a single case. So what we then did is we actually went and tried to say, well, instead of just aiming for a magical solution, how about we focus on, well, employee or worker efficiency? And that's exactly what we did. We had several workshops with them, and what I want to show as a demo, because I think this story is very important, but the demo will show what we could do, is exactly this. So what Jennifer did during her working hours was indeed nothing more than just scrolling through this document. And this document, as said, was typically just, well, provided by a chamber of commerce or any other organization that makes these publicly available. And she would then look for the specifics in that document that would give her a good understanding of, okay, well, this is what this company does, this is how it works, this is how the shares are divided, this is how people are allowed to vote in this company, yada, 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 the whole shebang.
Hey, Jasper.
Yeah.
Quick question. Now that you are jumping into the tools, into the admin console, do you want your screen in full screen now?
Well, probably better if you can make it full screen. So
All right.
it's not the admin console yet. This is another great and that we have. This is Kofax Power PDF that I just used to review this document. And as said, they had no control what the quality of these documents were. It might not even be OCR yet, those kind of things. So it took her a long time to do that. And what we then did is, following her, well, her suggestions, we actually said, well, you might know which paragraphs in this document would be the most relevant for you. So if you're looking for the purpose of a company, you're losing a lot of time actually looking for that specific paragraph that talks about that. So how about we would actually, and this is now already talking a bit more about the technical side of things. How about if we chop this document, this articles of incorporation, if we chop this up into paragraphs and we then do content classification on these paragraphs themselves, and we train that with examples of paragraphs that talk about the things that we're interested in, instead of just saying, well, hey, we've got this you've got this PDF viewer. No, you now have an ability to immediately go to or find the paragraphs that you're interested in. And that's, of course, step one. And therefore, immediately being able to jump directly to the well, the part of the document that's of most interest to them, that's already something that we were looking for. As she lost, well, 98% of her time just looking at where the data was hidden. So if I'm then switching to the actual environment that we created, and the demo that we then built, and the solution that we then provided, what we have here is we've got her new workspace. So this is Jennifer's new best friend. So here she'll see, and of course the rest of the team as well, which documents are ready to be reviewed. So we've already had the option to process these documents, do OCR, but at the same time we were able to, well, chop these up into smaller pieces, and we then classified these paragraphs specifically looking for those paragraphs that are of interest to Jennifer and the rest of her team. So what I've got here is indeed that validation screen. And of course, the validation screen is typically used by operators to verify within KTA, well, did we or do we have the right data points? Do we have everything set up here? I might need to refresh this real quickly. Just give me 1 second. There we go. If we open up the validation screen, and let me do some cleanup here so you can really see the approach there, is we've got 3 different documents. So 3 articles of incorporation for 3 different organizations that have applied to be onboarded to this bank. And a couple of the interesting data points. So in this case, we've got the purpose of the organization and we've got the shares. And Jennifer is now able to easily switch between all of these. So she can just, by clicking next and previous, she's able to directly go to the articles that are the most relevant for her. And only this improvement of immediately being able to pinpoint where that data is hidden, that's offered so much value to this specific bank that they were able to bring that 15 minutes that Jennifer used to do, bring it back to 30 seconds. So because she could immediately go to, okay, well, this is one of the articles that's of interest for shares, and this is another one. So just reading through this, she immediately was able to then indeed do, okay, well, let me just summarize this real quickly, or indeed let me mark this in the right way in her system that she worked in as part of the CDD process. So if we then think about how this was designed, the number of samples that we actually used to do this with was actually pretty small. I believe we only needed 50 samples to train this system for these 2 specific topics that they were interested in. And we can then, of course, or maybe even they can then take this and train it for even more, well, topics that they were interested in. And then again, this was version 1. Version 2 might actually be, well, once we've got the right right paragraphs identified, how about we then apply NLP to summarize parts of these? Or how about we then apply things and technologies like the text context locator and immediately find the actual data point itself immediately as well? But just by focusing on improving employee efficiency, they immediately got to great results. And the moral of this story is, if we back then focused purely on, hey, but they expect a 99% straight through process, we would never have gotten to this success that we had for this bank. Because if you want to have a black box that you can just throw documents in and then get, well, usable data out, that's going to take a lot of time, effort, and therefore some money, and probably also frustration. But if you then look at efficiency, how can we take 15 minutes and shorten it down to 30 seconds with a reasonable amount of effort? And having that effect on these processes was of the paramount importance. And yeah, just using that, and then of course also having the rest of the capabilities to improve upon that even further, that's something that you can apply to a lot of documents. Any sort of documents where you need to have very specific data extracted from, but you don't know where it's hidden. Those kind of things would be great for this. And of course, now with the additional capabilities. So, cat got my tongue. Sorry for that.
Hey, Jasper.
In the meantime, do you have any questions already? Maybe.
Yeah, there's one question that just came in. So basically, to give you a little bit of time to drink, water,
Thanks.
right? So the question would be, and the question is from Johnson: what locators were used, and how much of scripting was required to get this output?
That is a great question. When we built this, we didn't have the paragraph classification capability yet. So it was indeed done by a lot of scripting. But now, with the paragraph separation and paragraph classification capabilities within KTA, it is, well, it's still advanced transformation, but it's something that you can indeed achieve within a reasonable amount of time. And if anyone is interested, if you want to have a better understanding or a run through of this or other kind of solutions, let me know. We're always able to set up a one-on-one session to discuss that in further detail. But I don't want to bother you with the with the scripting that we used back then, because again, this use case and similar use cases were indeed, well, the source for investing into that paragraph separation, paragraph classification capabilities that were released probably like 6 months after that. But great question, Johnson. Thanks for that. So this being said, well, and I alluded to the actual results already. So this we were able, by doing this, just to bring 15 minutes down to 30 seconds. And that might seem odd, but if you then think that the efficiency gain that was achieved overall within this document handling process was 98%. And if you then keep in mind that one of the biggest challenges for this bank, but in all honesty, every bank, every financial institute that has to do these sort of CDD, AML, KYC, DFC kind of checks, they're struggling to find the right people. So how about we then make sure that you can do more with the people you already have when you're able to onboard all the people that want to become your customer as a bank. We've seen certain banks actually doing a new client stop where they said, well, we're not accepting any applications right now because we simply can't handle them. But just by focusing on efficiency improvements and using the right technology that's available today, you can achieve these kind of efficiency gains, and you can then use that going forward to drive this even more. And at the same time, it's also a quality of life improvement for people like Jennifer and the rest in her team, because she no longer needs to go through um, hundreds or thousands of pages. No, she immediately gets to the point where she is able to apply her strengths, her understanding, her cognitive abilities, and really make a difference. And not just for the bank, but maybe for the clients that she's onboarding, and indeed having a greater impact and improving not just her own quality of work life, but also quality of life in general for everyone that needs to interact with financial institutions. So that being said, I already mentioned these people here. The initial, well, person that made us understand, well, we need to stop thinking about STP. We need to start focusing on employee efficiency. David Wright, he also presents a lot of the transformation capabilities also for the community of practice, if I'm not mistaken. Chris Williamson for professional services, who also was of paramount importance in this project, and my colleague Berry van Leeuwen, who also provided a lot of insight and knowledge and experience to this as well. I wanted to make sure to call these three great guys out because they were absolutely important there. As said, feel free to reach out to me. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Look me up, drop me a line. But if you want to see more videos or more intelligent automation, KTA, RPA, transformation, you name it, anything that has to do with Kofax, have a look at my YouTube channel. There's always something there for you. That being said, I think it's about time to hand it back to Ben.